It's been a wild 2 weeks, and it doesn't get any easier. Kyalami in the dark. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my favorite championship here on RCI TV, Night Owl, in the 7th season and the middle round of this particular series. We talked about being in Kyalami just a moment ago. Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Benjamin Heilman, also known as Stewie, pulling double duty on comms and directing the broadcast tonight. Wherever you are on your Saturday night, we hope that you're well. We're cozy inside the box, but the racing here, the qualifying, so to speak, is going to be very wet indeed. Benjamin Heilman, Stewie, welcome back.
Yeah, hello Jesse, and I'm glad to be back. I think I've been in the box last week as well, but we did quite a three-way thing there with Mike Jones and Ryan Mawson. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's wet, and we already saw from the cockpit cam from Alex Rogers here that the spray is quite significant. And looking at the weather at the top, it's still going to rain more. And I believe the qualifying is immediately after the practice session, or it might be on a separate day. Let's have a look. No, it is on a Sunday, so we might have a dry qualifying.
Well, they've been practicing for the past hour in the wet, in the dark. Of course, the other thing that happened this week, the big topic of discussion, the 1.8 update, the mega update for ACC that changed so many things. Brought us a new car. It changed the physics of a lot of things, especially in the wet. Cars now are a lot slower in the wet. Driving in the wet is a little bit more treacherous as well on the tires. And of course, everybody has new BOP. It's all adding to this effect. Of course, last week I wasn't here, but I was told a very crazy race number 2. But this week, a very tall task. A lot of these drivers, though, Stewie, will have already had some practice this week. And now it's going to be interesting with the first couple of GT3 races already taking place this week, what these guys and gals can do on a Saturday night.
And as for our other championships, it's going to be very interesting to see which drivers adapted maybe a bit faster to the new physics and everything than others, and maybe scramble up the leaderboard here in this championship a bit. And you mentioned the wet physics. The graphics for the wet have also been significantly improved. I don't think we're going to see it today as much as we could if it was daylight. But I think you can see it in the spray already. The spray is way more pronounced than it was before, and it should look a bit more realistic. And also the lights, you can see it right now on the track, how good the reflections on the wet track look. It's just beautiful.
Well, we were talking before we went live tonight about, does it look darker out there to you than it normally would be? And I think we both agree, don't we, that it is. Of course, the lighting's changed dramatically. We've seen some very fantastic photography that has come out over the last couple of days of the differences at pre-patch to 1.8 and today. And it added lighting, better lighting. Of course, reflections on walls, all these things have changed. Also, I think the sort of ambient light is different, especially noticeable here at Kyalami, where there's not a lot of track lighting. It's basically pitch dark around the majority of this track, and it feels like that here.
I think one of the reasons why it might look a bit darker now as well is there was an issue before where the lights would go through barriers that are close to the track. You could see it a lot on... Ooh, it was a nice slide. You could see it a lot on Bathurst, where the walls are really close to the track, and the light would go through these walls, and they fixed that, so now the walls are actually blocking the light. As we're starting into a dry qualifying that's going wet in 30 minutes, which means the race start will be wet, I assume.
Well, this is interesting, too. Of course, they also made major tweaks to the weather system. It's supposed to be more progressive now. We'll see maybe in the race if that's true. We'll hear a dry qualifying. They practiced in the wet. They've got a dry track here to start qualifying. It's green. I expect even at 15C, we'll get up to maybe fast by the end of this qualifying session. What do you think?
Yeah, it might go fast. And just something I noticed on the TV cam. I don't know if it was that visible before, but look at the aux light in the car. How good you can see it from the front. I never really noticed that before. Maybe it's just been a while since I've done a night race, but that also looks really cool.
Yeah, the lighting changes, the optimizations and stuff too. I've heard a couple of people report that their game runs a bit smoother. I can't really tell on my system. It ran good to begin with, so I can't really tell. I've done some racing, and even with a packed racetrack, it performs really well. But I think some people on marginal equipment have certainly reported that yes, it runs a bit better. They've been able to turn up some of the graphic settings, and as a gamer, let alone a sim racer, that always feels good.
Yeah, it does. And obviously the DLSS and what was the other thing? FSX thing also improves performance
Yeah.
on maybe a bit on the lower end PCs. And Samuel Fogg is now coming on to the finish line and starting the first lap of the qualifying. As with this new physics update, we shouldn't expect the fastest laps now on the first lap. Well, before, even on the first fast lap of the qualifying, sometimes people would say really fast laps because the tires were already up to temp after one lap. Now with the physics update, it takes a bit more than one lap. Also, of course, depending on the length of the track. But yeah, the green track and the new tires, I don't think we're gonna expect any really fast lap here. But he's still gonna try his best to set in a banker because 50 minutes qualifying is also not too long, and essentially every next lap here counts with the track just getting faster and faster.
Yeah, it sure is. You're going to want to be one of the last cars to get a lap in here. I think that's your best chance to get up near the front or set pole position. Samir Foch has been untouchable in this championship thus far, has somehow been able to navigate all of the ups and the downs and get quite a good lead in the championship. We will have standings after qualifying, of course, but right now Samir Foch walking tall and racing well. But I mentioned earlier how much slower everyone is in the wet, in the full wet condition. Most people find that they're slower in general, even in the dry, if it's only by a few tenths or so. That we're told to maybe expect that as well. Certainly, I've seen that over this week. A lot of fast drivers just a little bit off of where they used to be. And also, you invite the egos in with that too, don't you? With them trying to get back to where they were. Speaking of getting to the top, Samir Foch, the first lap so far, 1:42.505. Like you said, not ultra quick, but still a decent banker lap.
Yeah, I think when the patch came out, we did a Kyalami race here just to try out all the new things, and I think the times were about half a second to maybe 8/10 slower than what we would see before the update. Of course, with a green track, gonna be slower anyways, but I would expect maybe low 41s here at the end of this qualifying.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. We're definitely going to get into the 41s at some point. The track's still green. Also, the progression of the track, I don't know if that's different. I don't read anything about that in the patch notes, but usually speaking, after about 5 minutes, the track goes from green to fat, and there it is, as if summoned. So that's one thing that is pretty much the same as it was before. When you get about 20 plus cars like we have here running around a racetrack, it only takes about 5 minutes to go from green to fast. Will we make it to optimum, though? That is the question. And if we do make it to optimum, yeah, I'm going to tell you, they're only going to get a lap in, I think, if that happens. But we'll see.
Yeah, as you said, it might just be the last maybe lap where it gets to optimum, but yeah, definitely you want to be the last one out in time when you go to the pit and exit the pits. And Boothby here setting a 41.6 already, so maybe we're gonna even get into the 140s. Gonna be interesting. And so far, just a few people that haven't set a lap yet. Almost everybody else set one, and I think we can already tell from the gaps here that not everybody adjusted just as fast as the other person, or maybe the cars just have a vastly different pace, but yeah, a difference from 4 seconds is something we usually don't see in this pro and silver split.
Well, George Boothby, the quickest so far, a 41.655. Boothby, who immediately, when 1.8 came out, he was on his own stream and trying to work out the physics. Well, he's done so well the past couple of days, predominantly in that 75 portion. Goes to the top here again. He was on pole for the Friday championship yesterday. Didn't get the win, but didn't really need to get the win. That had a really nice race, all things considered. So once again, picking up where he left off 1 day ago. Here, Fosh half a second behind. Come down pit road. He's having a rethink. So is Madre. So is Killian Ryan Meenan. Also in the pit lane, Judah Savalainen, the only car really with Boothby inside the top 5 still on the track. Speaking of, will Savalainen improve here? He will. A 41.907. Still a quarter of a second slower than Boothby, but progress is progress. The track's going to continue to get faster. Even if the track condition doesn't change to optimum, it's still taking more rubber. It's still getting faster every lap. So staying out there might be the call.
And also, I didn't see when it changed, but now it says there's rain in 10 minutes. I think that's also something that changed, that with the weather being a bit more progressive, or one might say more random, the weather app updates way more often than before. So at the start it said rain in 30 minutes, and only, let's say, 7 minutes later it says rain in 10 minutes. So who knows, maybe at the end of the qualifying, when people want to get in their fast laps, it already starts raining a bit and impedes their fast lap times. It's going to be really interesting. And also, if we see the weather changing like that in the qualifying, maybe the race will start in the dry and then in the wet and then switch over to the dries. We don't have any pit stop requirements here, so with the weather changing, that could be a really interesting and strategic race.
I mean, it's a very good point. I was told if it rains even just a little bit, with the difference between a dry lap and a wet lap here, it was very probable that nobody would come into pit at any point. But it is a possibility if it's a dry race. One thing that could explain the weather doing that is one of the additions in 1.8 was micro showers and storms, stuff like that, sort of pop-up showers as we'd call them in America, and sudden downbursts, stuff like that. So it's more realistic weather, because weather is somewhat unpredictable, despite the fact that we'll get paid to predict it. Never can tell. Boothby leading Savalainen now after Boothby improved to a 41.322. That gap nearly 0.6 of a second. George Boothby getting really close to a 140. Could we see it?
Maybe. He still has a few more laps to go here. And something I never really noticed is, does the Nissan have 2 exhausts on the side? Oh no, there's just the first one that you see is just the pipe. Okay.
So,
just noticed it.
Yeah, so that's the way the valence is on that car. You can see in it, and Nissan must have decided at some point in like 2013 that if you put vents in it and leave the pipe part open, it must cool easier. I'm not sure. It's very unique design. It's sort of hanging out the side. I think it's meant to funnel cool air into the side there. But again, with the lighting update, you can see it a lot better than.
I mean, it definitely sounds like it makes sense if there's more airflow around the exhaust pipe, that it cools down a bit more. And I think we now have everyone with a valid lap, and it's still a massive gap from P1 to the last position. Yeah, 3.3 seconds. And a few of the pro drivers, I think we've seen Daly in the top 10 in the first 2 races, who's now a bit struggling. I don't know if it's maybe the McLaren or if it's just a driver adjustment, but Migazzi seems to be a bit faster here than the other McLarens. And I think Savalainen, no, someone just improved his lap. Ryan Meenan did. He just went a bit quicker and came a bit closer to Savalainen here, but still not enough, and it's still half a second from P1 to P2 here.
sure is. George Boothby is about 4 minutes away from having a very boring race if he can pull that kind of gap. But Billy and Ryan Meenan, 7/10 of a second down in third place. You mentioned it earlier, Stewie, and I'll just reiterate there are a lot of drivers that have been struggling. A lot of the really quick esports type drivers struggling to get to grips with this update because it is so different. There's no way on this broadcast, Stewie and I can explain it to you. You just have to feel it in your hands. You have to drive it to understand and to know what it used to feel like and what it feels like now. There's people out there that don't like it simply because it's different, in my opinion. I personally feel that it's a large improvement over what we used to have. It's just the learning curve of having to completely learn things that you've committed to muscle memory for nearly 2 years now. That's the big ask. Everyone having to recalibrate their brains a little bit.
I think it also depends on what car those people were driving before, because some cars seemingly have been hit a bit harder, but it's hard to tell if it's just like maybe the BOP making the car a bit more balanced or slower, or if it's the physics changes that just are not too friendly with that specific car. Yeah, it's gonna take a while until we see, or we can actually tell if the BOP changes or the physics changes change something about the cars. From the races that I've seen so far, there were still mostly all cars that were fast before were still fast, as we see Ryan Meenan here slide a bit over that curb. And yeah, it's just been very subjective thing for the specific drivers if they liked it or not.
Just to keep you updated, qualifying Boothby still leads a 41.132. He's still out there. Chris Vining jumps into second place in the 113 Ferrari. He was around half a second off. That was until Boothby dropped his latest lap at that 41.132, flirting with a 140 here in Night Owl. And now Savalainen goes back to second, about half a second off in the 100 AMG. So your top five: Boothby, Savalainen, Vining, Killian, Ryan Meenan, and Zikas in the top five. Got two Porsches up there, a AMG, a Ferrari, and a McLaren. Samir Foch, championship leader, down in sixth place. Max Payne in the 966. We talked about the Nissan briefly a moment ago. What we didn't mention about that car is it's had a BOP change because it's no longer a used in regulation car. Who knows, has done a little magic to it to make it more competitive. That and some of the other cars as well, to keep it fresh, keep them in the game. And I think anybody that drives those cars, like Max Payne, Chris Vining comes to mind as well. He used to main the GTR. That is great news indeed. And of course, now inside the top 10 for that GTR. Stakecki's not inside the top 10, and he's not on the track either.
Yeah, and while you were talking, Boothby just set the 40.5 that we were not really expecting, but he did it, and it puts the gap from P1 to P2 to a whole second. And talking about the BOP changes, we're looking at the Audi right now, and the Audi was one of the best, if not the best car on Kyalami before the update, and there have been quite a few voices that from these Audi drivers that the Audi got hit quite hard, whatever reason that might have, and we can see it here. That's 1.7 seconds off the pole, or realistically, let's say 7/10 of the pole, because Boothby's just in another league here. But yeah, he seems to be struggling a bit. The Porsches were always strong on Kyalami. I wouldn't really expect the AMG to be that fast here, so maybe the AMG got some positive changes in this this update and this particular track.
Talk about being on your own planet. George Boothby, a 1:45.82, by far and away the quickest lap that we have seen here in pending rain, but it will not impact this track. We never got to optimum, but it didn't matter for George Boothby. A second ahead of Savalainen in the 100 AMG. Vining hanging on to third, 1.2 seconds out. Killian Ryan and Max Payne now has jumped from ninth place into the top five. Samir Foch has finished qualifying, will do no better than sixth place. Stachecki now trying to come to the line, realizes they probably invalidated their lap and takes out their frustration on the exit gate there on the final turn. Max Payne, though, is on a flyer. Could this be even better? Came from ninth to get here. Could it be better? What about Magazi as well? Timothy Flamger has had a really nice fight with the 46 for the pole position in silver. It's all going Timothy Flamger here at the end, who has crossed the line. He's 1.5 seconds off of the fastest lap in the session, but still has about 3 or 4 tenths ahead of his next nearest competitor. Huel now in the 548 has taken second place in silver. Here's Max Payne coming off the final turn and across the stripe. This looks like a good lap. Could they get a little bit further up the field for Max Payne? Yes, indeed, second place and breaks the 1 second barrier, and that will conclude qualifying. But my goodness, what a qualifying effort from George Boothby, a 140.582, and Stewie, he didn't even get the fastest first sector, and he did that.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. A Nissan on P2 on Kyalami and with the fastest first sector. I don't think that's something we would have seen prior to this update, but we see it now, and I'm all up for it because we have a Porsche, a Nissan, AMG, Ferrari, Porsche, McLaren, Ferrari. The Honda seems to be a bit struggling here, but we have most of our manufacturers here in the top 10, apart from
that's strange.
The Honda and the Audi.
Yeah, that's strange. It's a good point that you mentioned that the Honda used to be one of the best cars to use around Kyalami. Now, today, we only have one inside the top 12, and that's a bit unfortunate. Curious to see if that's track conditions or not. But before we get to the race, let's talk about the points. This is the points for the Pro Split, Pro and Silver together here on Night Owl. Samir Foch leading the championship, as we reported earlier, 111 points. Alex Rogers, after last week's race, jumps all the way up into second place with 78 points. George Boothby, who had a race to forget, a frustrating race. I think he finished 17th a week ago, has 72 points and looks to rebound today. By all accounts, is doing just that. Thomas Pearson, fourth place, 69 points. Nice. In fifth place, Jonas Savalainen with 65 points, tied with Chris Vining for that position. Madre in the 911 has 63. Stachecki with 59. Cormac Ryan Meenan with 58. And Oli Jars in the 10th place position with 53 points. Outside the top 10, the points look a little something like this. Magazi with 53. Trafka with 51. Bauer 48. Seb Brunier in the 769 with 39 points. Ulrich in the top 15 with 37, tied with Killian Ryan Meenan, Cormac's brother, of course. Neil Pimlott takes up the 17th place spot, 36 points. Fazekas in the 18th place position with 31 points. Mellis 19th with 29. Tyler Jason LaValle rounding out the top 20 with 23 points. And the back half of the pro field, Jordan Daly with 21, Max Payne with 19, McKelly with 12. Nobody else has points, as several drivers have signed out for a round or two, and that is the case for all of those drivers involved. Now, we talked about the pros. What about the silver field? Rafael Huel with 126 has been nailing it. Giannis Tassopoulos in the 778 with 106 points. Andrew Anderson doing a great job with 98 points as well. Mairdris in the fourth place position, 92 points, and a little bit behind them, Timothy Flamger, who's on pole tonight with 72. Outside the top five, Joshua Allen with 57, Ted Edwards, 48, Grim Lilith with 44, Matt Artem with 37, and David Lewis rounds out the top 10 with 34 points. Worth mentioning, this is the halfway point in the season. Not all hope is lost. These drivers here have no points. They have not taken part thus far. Well, George Boothby didn't have a great round number two, did he, Stewie? But he had the maximum qualifying that he could have had. And I just, Normally, this is the part of the show where we ask, "Who do you think's gonna win?" But I don't really think we're gonna.
I think it's going to be really hard to say who's going to win because it's raining and everybody was struggling. Even Boothby, we saw lose it a few times in the practice session. I don't want to say who's going to win this race yet. But something I do want to quickly mention now that I'm actually on the mics here, the new depth of field settings for the free cam and the replays just look gorgeous,
Here we
don't
go.
they? And just wait, I checked it earlier a bit, and just wait until these cars turn on the actual headlights.
Oh.
I guess you could argue if it's looking realistic when everything is a bit blurry, but it just looks really cool when we will go through the grid here.
I just want to point out something. Stewie, who is our excellent broadcaster here and broadcasts probably, I mean, I think it's not no-brainer, broadcasts more than anyone else. It's nice to have you in a commentary role as well. And all week I've heard about how gorgeous these cameras are, and they are, but up until last night, where you also were doing the broadcast, I hadn't noticed just how good they look. And of course, the steady hand of Stewie taking you through the grid as the lights come on, and I have to agree, it is just beautiful. Again, there's been so many changes. The patch notes read like a novel for the 1.8 update, and we would be remiss if we did not mention a little technical gremlin, because every time you fix something, something else breaks. There have been a lot of issues this week with server crashes or client-side crashes on servers. And that has led us to have contingency plans. On Thursday, we had trouble getting through practice and qualifying without drivers crashing. But once we got to the race, it was fine. It was the same scenario yesterday. Today, it has been flawless. We didn't have any issues other than one issue in practice earlier. And now we've made it to the race. Race admin, Ted Edwards, tells me that he's going to get with Tom Bryant, who's also an admin here at RCI, and come up with the best strategy or mirror Tom's strategy from yesterday, which was if we get halfway into the race or more, points will be awarded. If there's a crash in the first half of the race, we will restart the race. If it happens again, we will call it. But if we make it to halfway, some points will likely be awarded. If we can't make it to that point, the race will unfortunately have to be abandoned. But I'm telling you, after Thursday's GT4s and Friday's GT3s, I have a lot of confidence that we are not going to have a problem here tonight. And also keep in mind, Kuno's burning the midnight oil. They've pushed out 4 different patches, and we think they may have fixed the issue. So all of what I just said might be a non-issue now.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of drivers in the community trying to figure out and help Kunos what the issues may be. I think our champion or our races since the update have been pretty clean. I think we had a few issues for the Thursday champ, but that was only in the practice. We just saw it here with Savoline. There's a bit of rubber banding and cars moving a bit weird at times, which I think only happened after the update. But yeah, I'm confident they will figure it out, and we will go back to the smooth racing we've always seen. And we can see it now already a bit, the spray, and I'm gonna see if we can maybe hop into one of the cars in the midfield or the back just for the first few seconds of the race, because when you can max out the game on every setting there is, you can essentially see nothing anymore. It's just spray everywhere.
Well, one of the other things, too, that I have noticed, especially the last couple of weeks, they were taking 7 bells out of each other at Monza yesterday, the GT3 World Championship on RCI TV, and they were hitting each other pretty hard, and the cars were not bouncing off of each other as if they were made out of rubber. They were colliding, sticking together for the most part. That's a netcode thing. Also something Kunos was working on, and you love to see it. The stewards love to see it. Of course, we do have live stewarding here tonight. Head steward Phil Roberts in the box tonight with the whole host of the stewarding clan. Couldn't do it without them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking a part of your Saturday night and spending it with us. Same to you as well in the chat as well. Tell us who your favorite driver is, who you're cheering for tonight. It's a wet night here in South Africa as we get ready to go green here for race number 3 in the Night Out Championship. The lights go green, the gas pedals pressed, and an easy drive over to the right side by George Boothby. Back in the pack, Alex Rogers, as you see, racing down into turn 1 in the spray. Oh, and there's Kyalami in the background. There's a Porsche off. George Boothby leads. They're 3 wide through turns 1 and 2. They're going to still be 3 wide when they get to 3 and 4. You've got to sort it out, and certainly they do. Timothy Flamger leading in silver. The pole sitter gets out cleanly and has a clear lead in the silver class. Side by side for second place, Vining and Savalainen, or excuse me, that's Max Payne and Savalainen. It's dark, folks. I do apologize. Racing each other for the second place as George Boothby runs away here.
Yeah, he's already building quite the gap while the cars behind are still trying to figure out who should go where and who's in front. I think apart from this one small contact that we saw on the first corner, it was pretty clean, as we see Max Payne here lose the car a tiny bit, and that gives Savalainen the chance to go on the outside here. And something that we will probably also see a bit more, especially in this corner, is off the line, off the racing line, there's way more grip than there was before. So we can probably see a few more overtakes on the outside in certain corners, and this hairpin is definitely one of them.
Sure is. Juna Savalainen actually winning that fight over the GTR, had the proper position and got through. Now, we saw one night ago, George Boothby had an excellent qualifying run, but was ran down by Tico van der Velde at Monza. Now, could Boothby suffer the same fate? Has a 2.4 second lead here. Nobody wants to finish second. Like I said in the broadcast yesterday, it didn't really matter if Boothby won yesterday's race or not. But today, it could be very important. I think it's the complete opposite. I think he has to win. He has to have fastest lap and get maximum points today. Get back in this championship. Take it to Samir Foch, who is in 6th place still and hasn't moved at all. You got to get some of those points back tonight. A great way to get that done. Of course, Samir Foch didn't get involved in the early incident. I'm pretty sure that was the 911 of Madre that got spun in his Porsche. He's at the back of the field. I've also been reported by the stewards that Lewis in the 114 spun on the warm-up lap.
Oh, I did not see that. I think we also had the track map disabled during the warm-up lap, but I mean, he seems to be back on the grid. He's been overtaken by Madre, and you can take a quick look at what happened there in lap 1. It was it was the Porsche of Madre and the 131. And,
it's just ping pong. It's just a ping pong effect contact. Can't do that. You got to stay off the other cars, and when you don't, you go 3 wide. You turn into a ping pong ball, and you're going to take yourself out. You're going to take somebody else out. And unfortunately, Madre taking himself out there a little bit. Hard to say. I'm sure the stewards will review that. That is lap 1 incident, of course, and they'll take a look at it. But curious if they feel that the car in the middle was responsible for that. This is Samir Foch, the Mustache Racing Team 888 in the 6th place position. That's Fazekas in the background there in the McLaren.
I think Max Payne just
Rogers all close together.
Ooh.
You're right. Max Payne losing it there. I'm not sure what corner that was. That didn't look like Sunset to me.
No, that was before Crocodile, the right-hander.
Oh, yes. You have to relearn the track, Stewie, is what I'm learning here. In the dark, you had an idea in your head of what the track looks like, but when it's this dark, you don't really see it as much, and it's harder to tell. I now have a greater appreciation for those Radio Le Mans, Radio Show Limited broadcasters who do this as well, with the actual lighting being this poor. So I do apologize in the case of any errors.
Yeah, and something that also changed with this update is the cars are a bit more unstable under braking. So what we saw there in the first lap might also be because drivers not being adjusted yet. We saw that yesterday in the Friday Champ 2 where under braking a Bentley just slid a bit to the right and hit another car. And very close racing here between Vining and Foch. And We did have a few more contacts, which we will get to once this fight is cleared up a bit. It was the 15 and the 46, which the 15 we seen out the back of the grid, and Seb Brunier also had a contact. And can take a look at this one. I think this was in the last lap.
This is Seb Brunier.
Oh, that's the hairpin on the hill.
Is that Jordan Daly? I think it is. The contact between Seb Brunier and Jordan Daly there, I'm pretty sure that was. And there's no way Daly meant to do that. Daly probably figured he could fit in there, and of course Seb Brunier didn't know. Of course, in the background, the 966 off again. Max Payne, who qualified well up this grid, has had a horror show of a couple of laps, spun by himself. Is it the same place again? It is!
No, it's not. It's one corner later. This was Crocodile, and he was braking on the curb on the outside, and then just sliding through that corner, not being able to catch it again. Luckily, no one got hit, but yeah, that was not the same corner, I see.
Just again, I'm blind as a bat in the dark. I do apologize. Well, I gotta say, it looked almost identical, except that it was a bit quicker, clearly.
Look at all the outslides here.
Yeah, I know. Stewie was also talking about the interior lighting and all the extra little lighting cues now that you see. Of course, Chad agrees with us, Stewie. They love the way it looks now. It is ultra realistic. What's so strange about ACC now is, you remember when it came out and it didn't run particularly smoothly on even high-end hardware in the beta phase, and then all of a sudden it ran pretty well, and now you've got the best case scenario with lighting as Stachecki there a little bit loose. That will invite a potential move from Cormac Ryan Meenan here. We're looking down the inside. It's a double apex. It's hard to do it, but you can. A little wiggle there out of Cormac Ryan Meenan, and now everything resets to nil. But no, about the lighting, it is impressive how much lighting there is and how well done it is and how good the shaders are, and the sim runs better than ever. It's brilliant stuff. Excellent work.
Yeah, it is. And I think we're gonna have a brief look at what happened in lap 3 here. It's the 46 and the number 15. Oh.
This is Alessio Mellis, who's coming around a blind corner, couldn't get the car changed. There was a car parked on the apex there. Well, the stewards tell you to hold your brakes, but that's just unfortunate. It was in the racing line. Barnabas Fazekas here. What's happened here in the final turn? A little bit of fender bender there, contact. I think the stewards will let that go.
Yeah, I think in the previous incident we saw the 15 must have spun on his own, or we just didn't get any report for a contact, and we didn't see any second car, and then maybe the yellow flag was already gone, or it was just hard to see due to the rain. But yeah, that was quite the hard hit. And Medway here trying to fight his way back on the grid after, I think he was starting in the top 10, or at least very close to the top 10, and of course with the accident into turn 1 being thrown to the back of the grid, and now slowly working his way back up. And he's made a few places already, so he's definitely making progress, and it's not even 9 minutes into the race. But look at the weather, Jesse. It's just gonna rain even stronger in 10 minutes and 30 minutes as well.
No, you're right. This track is going to start to degrade. It is wet. Oh no, a car off there. That's Seb Brunier in the 769, who has gone off here by themselves. That's Max Payne in front of him. I don't think Max Payne's involved here. Just turns in, loses the grip, tries to catch it, and spins themselves off. You might have thought we were kidding. The tracks are more treacherous now, but they're also a lot slower. Can't do things like that, and getting it a bit wrong here in the dark, in the wet. And like you said, it's only going to get worse. Bart Macha, who is a race admin in his own right, was watching earlier and reported a 5-car pileup in the hairpin. He didn't see that 5-car pileup, but reporting that it did happen. If I had to guess, it involved the likes of Mellis, Mayerdries, and some others. Mayerdries, who qualified, I think, 3rd in silver, all the way running last all of a sudden. So think that might have something to do with it. Timothy Flamger still leads in silver over Huel. Tassopoulos in the third place position in that class. Tassopoulos is only 1.5 seconds behind Huel. We right on board with Cormac Ryan Meenan, who has managed to get just a little bit of gap on Stachecki now. No gap here, though.
I'm a bit confused who is who here, but I think we're seeing Fasikas and Vining fighting, and I think Vining was in front and Fasikas tried to go for the move on the outside, but it was clean, and I think there was a bit of contact, but both cars made it through that corner. That long right-hander there, even in the dry, it's hard to go side by side there. Now in the wet, it's not making that easier. And we see the slide here from right. No, that was Fasikas actually. So he did actually make the move on Vining and got it done. And yeah,
Barnabas Fasikas for the second time tonight with a big old slide. You would have saw Chris Vining flashing his lights at Barnabas there. There's a reason for that, of course. He didn't appreciate getting overtaken. Just like you said, Stewie, not the best place to do an overtake. Didn't appreciate him sliding it down in there. Barnabas on the inside. A little bit of contact, a hip check, and you're going to see the lights flash here. Chris Vining, not okay.
Yeah, it was quite the aggressive dive, but they were kind of side by side into the braking, so I would say it was a legit move to try here. And going back to the slide we saw there from Fasikas, one thing that also most people are saying that have played the update, and even the developers are saying, the cars lose grip a bit more predictably. So when you lose the grip and slide a bit, it's way easier to catch it. And usually that's what we're seeing, that when the cars are losing the grip in the rear, then most people seem to be able to catch it really well compared to for the update.
I would 100% agree with that personally. It has added a new layer of drivability. I fell in love with ACC this week, and the reason for it is the cars are so much more drivable and believable as GT3 and GT4 machinery alike, and that has just done nothing but make me fall back in love with it. I've got back into online racing for the first time in a while, and it's just brilliant. It's a chef's kiss, as they say. And while Stewie attends to a little issue on our back end here, I'm going to read off some of the penalties. And by some of the penalties, I'm going to read you the only penalty. 5-second penalty for car 911 for avoidable contact with the 131. That was lap 1, turn 2. I know a lot of people don't realize the dogleg on the front straightaway counts as a turn, but it does. So that was the 3 wide situation. So a 5-second penalty for forcing that maneuver in the middle of the track.
And we saw Raphael Huel lose it a bit on the mountain there in the hairpin, and I think he lost 2 or 3 positions with that. And here we have Alex Rogers, who I think started outside of the top 10 and is now already on P7, and he looks to be a bit faster than Vining at the moment. Of course, Vining might also be...
Oh, more contact, and I think Rogers is off. He is.
Oh, that was unfortunate. I think we will get the replay of this here, and that was into the... Where was that actually? Oh, that's turn 1, is it? Yeah, it's turn 1, and Rogers just going a bit too wide into the Ferrari here, and I'm glad to know that nothing changed about the Porsche being very light, and if you touch someone, it's most of the time that you spin around instead of the other car.
Yeah, that's turn 2 for those of you at home, but yes, indeed,
turn 2,
the
sorry.
first real turn that matters, so to speak. No offense, turn 1, you're a lovely turn, but let's be completely fair here. Ryan Gill would probably not classify you as a turn. Either way, I told you earlier, Timothy Flamger had a little bit of a gap. He still does, but this man, Gennis Tassopoulos, is closing in 5.7 seconds back, but has got around Magazi for the time being. Flamger running inside the top 10. Tassopoulos is nearest competitor in that class. Keep in mind, points are based on class, not overall in this championship. What a race it would be for Flamger and Boothby if both of those drivers could win tonight and change the complexion of this championship.
And I do think did. I know, but Minen and Vining were fighting, and I wasn't sure if he maybe made the pass, but he's definitely catching up to him. Of course, Vining lost some time with the contact with Alex Rogers, and yeah, the Honda maybe wasn't the fastest in the dry in the qualifying, but it looks like in the wet, either the Honda is just now better in the wet, or the Ferrari is just not working as well as Vining expected here. But he keeps having to fight people off from behind. First it was Fazekas, then it was Rogers, and now it's Minen.
Sure does. Stewie, if you wouldn't mind, we've got a special message from our race producer, Mike Jones. If you might want to look in chat for that real quick. And on the meantime, we're going to talk about Cormac Ryan Minen, who's still right behind Chris Vining here. Now, Vining trying to hang on. That car not so great. It looks like they've overdrove some of the corners, has Vining a little bit. A lot of Ferrari drivers that use the Ferrari have reported that there's something very different about that car. I heard Stewie talk about that earlier, about how that car handled quite differently and probably was the most dramatically different of a lot of these cars. And I think a lot of the Ferrari faithful are finding it a little bit difficult to get the legs back under the car. But certainly Vining doing a really good job. Bosch, by the way, up into 4th place, started 6th, doing well in a Ferrari. Now we have 3 of them inside the top 10, with Thomas Pierce in 9th place.
And here we see Huel, who's trying to get back to where he was before. I think he was fighting for P1 or P2 in silver, and yeah, with that contact, got thrown back a bit, and now he has to overtake Migazi, who's in the pro class. So maybe Migazi will just let him by or slow down a bit, because he doesn't want to lose time as well if he notices that Huel is a bit faster. So far, he hasn't made any moves, but yeah, it's gonna be gonna be still in for Huel here to get back to the race. Is also still more than halfway to go, so I just have to say that the straight here with the the field of depth and depth of field and all the lights, it just looks good. But yeah, there we go. Huel making the pass on Migazi, or does he? He actually doesn't. He went for the inside, braked a bit later, apparently braked a bit too late, and yeah, now is back behind that McLaren.
Well, we were told not to expect pit stops. I think that is going to be the order of the day. I don't think you're going to see pit stops. I think you will see the rain increase in less than 10 minutes time, and then again 10 minutes before the end of the race. So it's going to get wetter. It's not very warm, but it's not too cold either. 14 degrees C, ambient and track, a nice breeze blowing what would appear to be, if I remember correctly, east to west, technically, as a McLaren off in the background. That's Giorgio Magazi's on.
And I think the same thing that happened to Sepp Bournier earlier happened to him as well. I would say it's just touching the curb very lightly under braking, because this losing grip looks way more rapid than it does if it's only the car being unstable under braking.
There is another big update that you all at home can notice as well. If you have the fastest lap in the race or session, we'll have a magenta number plate, or a position plate rather. George Boothby, the quickest lap of the race. That's why he has a purple and or magenta background to his position marker up there. Of course, if you ever wonder what the red marker means, that's just the car we're focused on. But the addition of letting everyone at home know where or who the fastest car is brilliant. Previously, Stewie, we always had to tell people. We knew, but it was hard for everybody at home to know. Now they have a visual representation here. What do you got here for it?
That is Buher Medway, who kind of copied the move from the Nissan earlier, also losing a bit of grip under braking. Luckily didn't spin and got back on the track, but he's now, yeah, he lost a few more positions. He's actually behind Rogers now, who must have fallen back quite a lot because he was standing on the opposite, facing the opposite way on the track before.
Alessio Mellis here trying to get by Ted Edwards. Not a battle for position, but still a battle that needs to take place. Mellis would like to get up there.
I think he already got by him, sorry, but yeah, he already got by him.
You're right, he sure did. Mellis has gotten by Ted Edwards and now sets his sight on Jordan Daly for points for class. Got a couple of other penalties that have come through. 15-second penalty for Jordan Daly in car 197 for taking out the 769 of Seb Brunier. Position return following contacts all unavoidable. They have deemed there. Warning for car 911, that's Madre, for throttling up through another car following an incident causing avoidable contacts with car 95. 5-second penalty for car 46 causing avoidable contact to a stationary 15 car. Now that's interesting, isn't it? They gave the 46 5 seconds because they deemed they could avoid the 15 car that was stationary. Racing incident between the 4 and the 113. Interesting, Stewie. I talked to the stewards pre-race today, and I asked them if they were going to be a bit more strict today with some of the drivers, and they said, no, we are consistent throughout all of our championships, and we judge all punishments based on what is the standard, not based on how someone or something is driving. Stuff you love to hear.
And we just saw Seb Brunier losing it on his own, and then the 114 from David Lewis just couldn't really avoid him, maybe, and Brunier off the track again. So it seems like, oh yeah, either the car's
Seb
just
Brunier.
Either the car's just even more damage from the contact, or the car's just not working for him, because this car seems really dangerous.
Seb Brunier is going to need a few adult beverages tonight, I think, to get his mind off of this one. That it's going to be a very tough, rainy night in South Africa for the Frenchman. Meanwhile, back up inside the top 10, Stachecki here continuing to try and keep Chris Vining behind him. Vining, who has been on a little bit of a resurgence here after losing several positions. Stachecki there is going to weather that storm, but Vining just keeps taking these really deep lunges, Stu.
Yeah, I don't think it's on purpose, because the track is probably getting wetter and wetter, and I don't think any of these drivers really driven for a longer time in the wet, so maybe the brakes are just getting worse faster, or the tires are just getting worse faster. There's so many factors that could be a reason for these deep lunges, and I don't think it's because he wants to make these dives. I do think it's related to one of the many changes that this update has brought us.
I think it is. Of course, our own Bart Macha in chat confirming what I mentioned earlier about the consensus about the Ferrari from all the Ferrari faithful, that car is a bit of a handful. It's just going to take some time to get it back into control. And it wasn't too long ago people would shy away from the Porsche specifically because of how tricky it is, and then one person got it, and then another person got it, and then look at George Boothby, a converted Porsche driver now, and using it to excellent effect.
Ooh.
As Stachecki goes completely off the track and saves it, but that's going to let Vining through, and I think Cormac Ryan Meenan side by side on the outside. He may have a shot here. Minor touch, no harm, no foul, but could Stachecki hang on here? Yes, indeed, but only just.
Yeah, that was really close, and we maybe have a replay of that, and no, I think that was already after he lost it. But yeah, a lot of these cars struggling a bit here to keep it straight. Yeah.
Close racing stuff. Killian Ryan Meenan driving off the racetrack. There's no grip over there, Killian. You know that. This is for second place. Jonas Savalainen, who has been losing time to Boothby, has been losing time to Killian Ryan Meenan as well. Battle for second is well and truly on. George Boothby showing no signs of backing off here. This is fifth place Barnabas Fazekas coming through the mine shaft. There's a car on the inside just sitting there, and he's going to lose it here. Oh dear. Coming into the crocodile section there. That's not what you want to do. How many times have we seen cars backwards today? Most of them McLarens.
And the car on the inside was the 114 of David Lewis, who I believe also lost it on his own. But yeah, back to the fight at the front here. It seemed to have taken some time for Killian Ryan Meenan to find the pace, but now he truly caught up to Savalainen, and I'm sure we're going to see some interesting fighting here. But we talked about it during the qualifying. Boothby just being in a completely different race, it seems. He's already 12 seconds ahead and doesn't look like he's gonna slow down.
Tell you something else you're going to see before the end of the race. Giannis Tassopoulos has halved the gap to Timothy Flamker for the lead in silver right now. Oh, a lunge there by Killian, trying to maximize the corner. Is going to try and get a better run here. The Porsche still can't outrun an AMG, but trying to get the best exit possible. Not wanting to stay directly in the spray if he can help it.
Oof.
Now trying to use all of the racetrack like a Porsche will do to try and gain, and Savalainen missing the apex a little bit, rounding it off. Killian doing the opposite, sharply hitting the corner, and now into Cheetah, one of the most dangerous corners of any racetrack. They're all clear through it as this chase is clearly on, but back to Flamker and Tassopoulos for 1 second as well. That gap was nearly 6 seconds. It's down, well, it was down to 2.5, and now it's back up to 3.2, but it's certainly been halved. An eye on that battle between the 19 and the 778. We continue to watch as Cormac goes over the curb. That's not good, but an excellent save. That's hard to save in the dry, let alone the wet. Cormac, Ryan Meenan stayed on the racetrack.
Yeah, and I do feel like we're seeing more drivers fight with their cars than they're actually fighting with other drivers. We saw it for Savalainen and Ryan Meenan there, both of them struggling a bit to keep the car on the correct line. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of fighting, just not between the actual drivers. And you mentioned it, we saw the Honda here go over the curb. That might also be one of the corners where it's now a bit less dangerous to actually take the curb. We talked about that on Monza, as the Honda here has a way better exit, and now we're gonna see another 2 right into this long corner here. I actually always forget the name of that. Is it Sunset?
That is Sunset.
Into Sunset, yeah. I think we've seen more to... Oh! Who was that?
Oh! Was that
was
a car
Vining.
sitting in front? That wasn't... Who was that? Was that Chris Vining that's off?
It was, yeah.
Let's see. This is Sunset. We've seen several cars lose it there. Just too much curb. Slides it, drifts it, and can't hold it anymore. And just ends up right in front of this group. Heavy contact with the leading car in that particular pack. Chris Vining, who has gotten going only just, has fallen 10 positions and has major damage. And that was Cormac, I think, that got the most of that. So Cormac Ryan Meenan now with a lot of damage, surely.
Yeah, and it looked like we will see a penalty for that, for not holding the brakes, but it was hard to see from the TV camera. We couldn't even see the car because it was covered by the trees that were in that corner. And yeah, as I was saying, we talked about it on Monza with the curbs, that cars might be able to take them a bit easier. And this curb there in Crocodile might be one of the corners where, before the update, it was almost certain death ending in the wall when you hit that curb. And now it might be a bit more lenient to cutting these corners. And was it actually Ryan Meenan who hit that car?
I think it would have had to been. I saw a purple car, and I would have thought it would have had to have been Cormac Ryan Meenan. They were the one leading the group. They still are. So what that does is we're going to go back and take a look. This is the incident with Chris Vining. Pay attention to the first car. They're going to hit it.
Was Stachecki.
And that was Stachecki. That was not Ryan Meenan.
And he's actually in the pits and repairing the damage.
This is Christoph Stachecki here in the 144. The question mark team, they hit the spinning car of Chris Vining. We're going to take a look here. The 144 is fighting the 4. And yes, okay, so that's what I was... Ooh, that was an extra little bit of contact there. But yes, that's exactly what where I was getting mixed up. That was actually, if you looked up the road, that was Cormac and Pierce fighting each other in front of that group. And there is where the confusion lies. Well, either way, George Boothby has a massive lead here tonight, 13 seconds. And if you're a part of his team, if you're a part of Yas Heat, you have to be telling him, just don't crash the car at this point. It's all gone well, looking for a big haul of points. Fastest lap, the win. and pole position. The trifecta here tonight, all worth points. Could see him immediately back into this championship fight after one bad race.
And so far he's been gaining almost a second every lap. We're 16 laps in and his gap is 13 seconds. So it's close to 1 second every lap that he's gaining here. So he doesn't even have to try and push too hard. He just needs to keep it on the road. And if he can stay in his car for one lap maybe and see if his fighting with the car is as bad as we've seen it with the other drivers. But I do believe it doesn't look much different than to the other ones we've seen so far.
Couple of more penalties coming out. A warning for car 144 for moving under braking. Racing incident between the 113 and the 4. Racing incident between the 113 and the 119. A pass leading to contact and one car spinning out, but deemed a racing incident. Other than that, not a whole lot going on in stewarding tonight. The track has been self-policing, I'm afraid, and that's not a good thing in any stretch, but not a whole lot that they haven't been able to handle. They've been keeping up, Alpha's told me.
Yeah, I think most of the incidents we've seen were just minor incidents. We haven't seen anything too bad yet, apart from the cars that were already stopped on track. But if we're talking only accidents that happened during a fight or anything. So yeah, considering the conditions and being night, new patch, it's been quite a clean race. And yeah, we see Boothby here. Yep. Also fighting with the car, but
yeah, but that's George Boothby. He does that just for fun, I'm sure. Halfway through the race, and a time to thank all of our partners: Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. More information about them in the description, and more info about them after the race tonight. And also time to check in with you in the chat. How are you? How was your weekend? How's your Saturday night? And by the way, thank you for spending a little bit of it with us here on RCI TV. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing content. Of course, we'll be back with you on Monday for the continuation and the very first race of the Porsche Cup under the 1.8 physics. It's going to be very interesting. Ryan Gill and Nate with you for the call of that race. Do not miss that. But here, unfinished business, just about 2 in the morning in sim time here at Kyalami, South Africa. 27 minutes and some change left in the race. This race has not been too much of a contest for George Boothby. Cruise control, you would have to imagine, from the driver of the 75 Yaz Heat Porsche, but for everybody else, it has been an excellent drive, to say the least. Savalainen, by the way, who was under fire from Killian Ryan Meenan for about 5 laps. Well, that battle has cooled off considerably. 3.1 seconds now, the gap, as Jonas Savalainen in the 100 AMG has found a little extra racing room, a little extra pace. I was watching this guy earlier, Alex Rogers, the Porsche Lerner Drivers 119. Oh no, David Lewis off again. Looks to be a single car spin.
yep. Again, I think it was the braking on the curb here. It was after sunset, the left-hander, yeah.
Yeah, so that is Clubhouse. Okay.
Yep.
I was wondering, that's very strange to see a car go off that early in Clubhouse. Normally it's on the exit. But David Lewis, the DRL team, has had a frustrating day. They spun on the outlap before the green flag, and it has unfortunately went downhill since then. Seb Brunier is still in the race in the 769, but with all the damage, they have spent a ton of time on pit road. In fact, we just had a car resign from the race, but I have no idea which one it was, because it wasn't the one running near the back. Somebody else has stopped racing this evening.
And I don't know if you saw that, but Thomas Pierce here was using essentially the wetter line on the straight as if he's cooling down his tires. So that's something you would expect if the rain is getting less, but I don't think we're seeing the rain getting less here. So maybe he just overpressured his tires a lot and they're getting too hot now, or maybe with the changes to the physics, even the wet tires get way too hot if you slide a bit too much. But yeah, definitely something I wouldn't expect to see at this point of a race, that people try to cool down their wet tires.
The only thing I could think of is they overreacted on their tire pressure and it's getting a little too high. It could be that, could be brakes as well. You never can be too sure. Just trying to cool off the tires because the brake pad heat does go to the tires. It is a thing that occurs. So maybe they've got something wrong and they're trying to fix it on the racetrack without having to come in. Like I said, we don't expect, the stewards don't expect, and I'm inclined to agree, we don't expect anybody to have to pit tonight with the reduced pace. Everybody should be able to make it. There should be no reason to come in. We know it's going to be wet weather throughout the duration of this race, and it's only going to deteriorate as the race goes on. My question is, near the end of the race, could this track be even more treacherous at the near flooded status, perhaps?
I don't think it can get too flooded if there's actually cars driving on the track. I do believe that's a track status that you only see if the session just started and it's been raining essentially in the simulation before the session started. The weather app hasn't really changed since the race started, so it's just been getting progressively stronger all the time, and I'm not sure if we can actually see it here, but I do think the spray also got a bit more when we were looking from the inside of Alex Rogers' car here. Considering it's only one car ahead of him, it's quite a significant wall of water that he has to wipe off his windscreen there.
Yes, indeed. The closest battle on the track here, Flamger and Alex Rogers. Rogers trying to get by the silver leader. Of course, you don't ever want to get in the way of somebody else. And of course, if you are a pro class car, the general synopsis is you're supposed to finish in front of the silver cars. That we know that that's not always the way it is. But look at this smart move by Timothy Flamger, the Porsche Lerner driver's car in the 119 of Alex Rogers being let through. Meanwhile, Jordan Daly here. Heard they got a little bit of snow last night. Well, no snow here in South Africa, but sliding around like it. That, of course, in Sunset. How many times have we seen that tonight?
Yeah, Sunset and the following corners seem to be a hotspot of losing the car tonight here on this wet track. And I do think Ryan Meenan seems to have picked up his pace a bit again, because Pierce is now a bit more than a second or a second back when he was fighting him before. So yeah, the Honda working really well in the race and not too well in the qualifying. Meanwhile, the Nissan, who started on P2, has fallen back to P12 already. So it's hard to tell if that's because of the dry versus wet, or if it's just the setups or the more fuel, but definitely interesting to see this huge difference in pace between these two cars in the qualifying and race sessions.
Well, keep in mind the 966 had early dramas, right? They were all the way at the back of this field at one point pretty much, so 12th place. Not so bad for Max Payne now. Is coming back to them a little bit, and we'll see. We talked earlier about Ferrari being trickier now. How much trickier is it in the wet? I would reckon sizable amount, perhaps. We've got two inside the top six, but can't deny it. The writing's on the wall. 3 Porsches, actually 4 Porsches inside the top 10 now. It's always been a Porsche track, and it still is. You made a very good point earlier, Stewie, and I think that the race tonight kind of backs that up. If a car was good before, it probably is still good now. It's just a little different, and Porsche always the king here in South Africa.
Apart from the Audi, yeah. I'm pretty sure the Audi was always a bit better than the Porsche. But yeah, Porsche definitely high up there. And by the looks of it, the Audi not so much anymore. But yeah, hard to tell if that's car or driver setup, weather, whatever related.
Yes, indeed the case. And well, we've got I noticed a couple of other penalties, and we do have them for you. 5-second penalty for car 46, plus a warning for not holding brakes, warning for not holding brakes, and a warning for rejoining in traffic 2 warnings equal a penalty, 5-second penalty for the 46 based on 2 warnings for the same incident.
And that is Rogers just losing it by himself.
Well, that's unfortunate. Rogers had just gotten in front of the lead of Silver, and now Timothy Flanger in the 19 Macca goes back through. So work starting all over again for those two, or excuse me, for Alex Rogers. Warning for car 769 for not holding brakes on a lap 11 turn 9 incident. Racing incident for minor contact between the 12 and the 144. 5-second penalty for car 113, causing avoidable contact, not holding brakes during loss of control. Racing incident between the 4 and the 144. A little bit of contact between those two, it says, but all's fair in the end. Racing incident. That's all that we have.
I think we actually saw the 144 on the 4. That was Stachecki with the Audi after he hit the sideways Ferrari on the track, and he just bumped into another car in one of the next corners. And that was another car. Oh! That was the 911 of Madre who was sideways. And that looked very similar to what happened to Rogers in turn 2 there. Lost it, but then unfortunately he hit the other side of the track as well, and then yeah, slid across there. That's one thing that I particularly noticed as a Porsche driver myself. It wasn't in the wet, but I can only assume that it's even worse in the wet. That where before with the Porsche, one of the strengths was that you could brake really late and deep into the corners. If you try to do that now, you have to be way more precise on the brakes, otherwise the rear just gets very, very loose. And I would assume that's something we see here, that trying to brake a bit later and brake a bit deeper into the corners, and then the rear just getting loose and spinning them around.
I think that is the case. I think a lot of guys out here are learning these cars. It's been our theme all week here on RCI TV. We do apologize if we sound like a broken record, but it's exciting to us as race fans and drivers as well. It's also something that performing at a high level, you have to learn very quickly is where is your car different? Why is it different? And how is it going to react? What do I need to do to get it back under control? And I think everyone here in a very wet condition in the dark, I think everybody here, doesn't matter if you're last or leading, you're all learning something. Was that Ted Edwards just in front there? I'm not sure.
That was Seb just making space.
Yes, indeed. Seb Brunier going off in the final corner. I think that's Ingwe doing that on purpose to get out of the way of these two, going at it for position here. Oh, Stachecki going to the outside, and that is going to let, that's Daly back through.
It is Daly, and we've seen this this move earlier. I don't remember who it was. I think it was a Porsche. Going on the inside, trying to brake a bit later, and then just the classic switchback. It's good to see that these moves happen without any contact here, but Stachecki definitely trying to get back the positions he lost earlier, and I've been told the drive-through for the 911 is for track limits, which is something I don't think we would have seen prior to this update in the wet, because the wet was notorious for as Daly touching the curb and losing it. Replay just going here on the inside, accelerating a bit too much, and then yep, just losing the rear. Luckily no hit on the wall, but that's losing him the position. And yeah, as I mentioned, the wet before this update, because it was using essentially the same lap times as the dry was to determine if there was a cut that needs to be punished, you could essentially drive all around the track without getting any warnings. I think Rouge on Spa was one of the most known corners for that, where in the wet you could just cut it every time. But yeah, Kunos have updated these track limits, and now they should be way more strict, and I think that's something that we've seen here with this drive-through. And actually I still don't know who it was, but the driver that left the race before also left after getting a drive-through for track limits. And
well, Mike,
sorry, Lewis also got one, the 114.
Yes, indeed. Mike, it really slaps Jones, spying on George Boothby, saying that he keeps cranking up his ABS, which tells me that it might actually be getting a bit more wet out there, and he's sliding around more than he was at the start of the race. We kind of expected it to get wetter, even though it's dark and we can't visually represent how much wetter it is. And I think Boothby adding more ABS because he's sliding around could be a very big part of that. Thomas Pierce here has closed in on Cormac Ryan Meenan. Meanwhile, by the way, we didn't even talk about this, I don't think. Samir Foch has gotten around Killian Ryan Meenan and now up into third place. Your championship leader, racing from 6th to 3rd. Excellent day for Samir.
I do think there must have happened something to Ryan Meenan because I didn't see them fighting, and I think I will just have a quick look if I can find that real quick to see if actually something happened to Ryan Meenan, or if that was a alleged overtake. It's gonna take a few seconds, and then we will know a bit more.
Going to take a look at the replay. All the drive-throughs are for track limits, and just to expand upon what Stewie was talking about, the track limits in the wet are incredibly close now to the track itself. You're not allowed to go off track, slide through, and keep it going like you used to be able to do. It is very strict indeed, and those are certainly where those track limits come into play today. And we suspect they may continue to work on that as, yes, going off, just barely getting through. But that is Killian Ryan Meenan just losing it a bit, almost hits the inside wall, gets it going the right way. Big time loss, loses a position to Samir Foch, who had been running 4th for the majority of this race. Excellent catch there, Stewie.
Yeah, as I said, I was pretty sure that that wasn't an actual overtake, and yeah, just wanted to have a look what happened there. I think we've seen a lot of people losing it on their own now, and who's he flashing there in front of him? I think that's Sepp Brunier. Yeah, that's right. And Sunset, not one of the easiest corner to let someone by, especially when you have to do any other braking than you usually do. And yeah, Ryan Meenan now, he's actually only 1 second behind Fox, so I would say we will maybe see them fighting a bit, because he didn't hit a wall, he shouldn't have too much damage, and maybe we will get a fight for P3 here in the last 10 minutes of the race.
So here's my notepad. For those of you that are uninitiated, as 114 goes off again, I keep a notepad with me for every broadcast I've ever done, and I write things down. I'm looking for race trends. I'm looking for interesting tidbits about the race and how the championship's going. Tonight's is a bit different than usual. Tonight's is about certain cars doing certain things, and we've been able to have some patterns here. A lot of the Ferraris just look generally unstable some of the times, and they look a little unsure in the braking zones. I have McLaren down for touching any sort of curbs and spinning, and Porsche putting its power down out of a corner or into a medium to fast corner. It doesn't seem like it's going their way. A lot of lazy spins out of the Porsche, a lot of quick spins out of the McLaren, and the Ferrari just looks a little unsure for me on all accounts. And I think these are all things that we'll see in a week's time will be completely fixed. But due to the fact that the patch has only been out for a few days, and this is the first in earnest real wet race that they probably had to do, this is a testing ground, and I think you're seeing a lot of the cracks come out here tonight. You know who hasn't had a single crack? George Boothby. 31 seconds out in front of the field. Oh boy.
Yeah, he's just been flying away, and you mentioning your note, but I'm curious, what did you write down for the Audi? Because I think that's both the 144 and the 114 seem to be struggling way harder than everybody else combined.
Yeah, so I don't have anything for the Audi other than isn't good anymore, question mark, and that's in reference to this particular track. We all know the Audi was particularly potent around this track, but that's the only thing I have for it. I haven't seen anything specifically from Stachecki or anybody else. But for me, is it good anymore? Is the question. I don't think we're going to get that question answered tonight, Stewie, but it's worth talking about.
It is, yeah, and yeah, as I mentioned, both of them been struggling really hard, and we're seeing Tassopoulos here, who I think he caught up to Flamger again. He was closer earlier and then has fallen back a bit, but now he's in punching distance here as Flamger goes a bit wide, and the Aston, prior to this update, one of the strongest cars, if not the strongest car in the rain, due to being very, very balanced and being very good on the tires. And as you mentioned, the McLaren seems to be struggling here a bit, so I do think Tassopoulos here now at the end of the stint might have the upper hand, and it's still gonna be not too easy to go by him, but yeah, I do think we will see a fight for P1 here in silver.
Well, earlier, Alex Rogers got by Timothy Flamger and then spun himself. That's the 119. Ended up behind Flamger again. Had to repass Flamger to take the 7th place position. And all of that probably didn't help Timothy's sort of pace at all, especially on a night like tonight. And Giannis Tassopoulos has closed right up to the back of Flamger again. This is the 2nd time he's been just about this close. He ended up losing quite a bit of time midway through this race after he caught him. This is the lead for silver. And for anyone wondering, yes, Magazi's drive-through penalty in the 34 was for track limits. The 911 of Madre has retired on a very frustrating night for competition for that 911. And the race does go on with 20 cars circulating around the racetrack. I think there is a new steward report, and in fact only one. That was the warning for car 911 for not holding brakes. That was up to a 5-second penalty because it was his 2nd warning. Well, 911 will not be serving that because he has left the building tonight.
And we just saw the 911 also leaving the race. I believe that was also due to track limits. And talking about track limits, look at this. Savalainen in P2 with the drive-through.
Oh no! Drive-through penalty. Jonas Savalainen has been 2nd this entire race, has been solid all day long, and has a drive-through penalty. You have 3 laps to serve it. Otherwise, you're disqualified. That will drop him completely off the podium.
It will, yeah, and that actually makes the fight for P3 that might come up a fight for P2. And Cormac Ryan-Meenan actually I mean, he didn't catch up to his brother there, but he is now on P5. Do you remember where he started? I think it was P13 or P14, so he made quite a lunge there in the leaderboard to the front.
Yeah, he sure has. Well, what this means is Savalainen will not finish on this podium, won't likely finish on this podium. He's going to be 20 seconds behind, I think, Killian Ryan-Meenan. Oh no! Timothy Flamger goes around! Was that contact with Tassopoulos?
That was actually contact with Huel, and we did miss the overtake between Flamger and Tassopoulos, but yeah, we can take a quick look at this. I think that was just the Porsche braking a bit too late there and hitting him.
Here's Raphael Huel. Raphael Huel coming up here. Gonna be, hard contact into the braking zone, spinning out what was, I believe, 2nd place at the time, Timothy Flamger. Flamger now still running 3rd in class, but the stewards won't like that one bit, as Giannis Tassopoulos has taken the lead. We didn't see that either. Tassopoulos was already by Timothy Flamger when that happened. So Tassopoulos, your new leader in silver in the 778 Aston. And an excellent drive. Raphael Huel's off again. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I think that was just due to the damage he got from hitting that car and losing a bit of the aero, but so much happened in the last, let's say, 20 seconds. We had Alex Rogers get by Thomas Pierce, and I do believe Thomas Pierce must have had some kind of accident as well, because they weren't that close to each other, and suddenly Alex Rogers got by him. So yeah, we had a change in the lead between Tassopoulos and Flamger, then Flamger being taken out by Huel, Rogers overtaking Pierce. We had the 114 Lewis being off track again, and yeah, then Huel losing it on his own, but I think he's still far enough ahead of Ted Edwards here to stay in P3. Yeah, the gap is big enough for that.
Savalainen has been down pit lane. They rejoin about 7 seconds behind Killian Ryan Meenan. Samir Foch from 6th place all the way up to 2nd. It was looking like such a great points day for George Boothby, and it still will be, but it will be rained on his parade, no pun intended. Samir Foch, the championship leader, just keeps fighting, just keeps digging. That 888 Ferrari, the only Ferrari today that hasn't had any sort of issue, it looks like, and has done nothing but rocket to the front of this field. Now, will Foch finish 2nd or 3rd? I know Boothby would appreciate Killian Ryan Meenan passing him for 2nd, because it'd be even more points that Boothby would claw back. Or, of course, George Boothby had that terrible outing 1 week ago. Saw them drop to 3rd in the championship, but is on the right path now. What's happened to Thomas Pierce now?
I think Rogers
Actually, that's
just...
the 119. That's the 119 there.
Yeah, I think Rogers just lost it on the braking or something and went right into the snake there, and then Pierce got by again.
I wonder what the stewards will think about that rejoin. That looked a bit straight liney. Okay? I'm not sure if they would appreciate that. It didn't put anybody in immediate danger. Clearly, Pierce was able to get around in that case after Rogers went off, but I know the stewards don't like that when you rejoin sort of at an acute angle to the racetrack or perpendicular as well. Killian Ryan Meenan, this is what he sees with less than 4 minutes to go. You can barely see it, but that is a red Ferrari of Samir Foch in the 888 in front of him. This is the race for 2nd in pro class, and this the visor cam from Killian Ryan Meenan, the FFS racing driver, and, well, better him than me.
Yeah, indeed, and they're also coming up on a bit of traffic here. I think it's only one car. While we quickly check in on Savalainen, who I believe just went off track, and I think that looked similar to the incidents we saw earlier in that corner, where it's just hitting the curb under braking and just going right. Luckily, there's the sand pit, so he didn't hit a wall. And he only lost 10 seconds, so Cormac Ryan Meenan is still too far behind. But yeah, everybody seems to be struggling except Boothby. And we have another drive-through, but I do think that is not for track limits. But I also don't see anything from the stewards, so it might be a drive-through for track limits for the 548.
We'll see about Raphael Huell. We'll see exactly what they say about that. Meanwhile, Samir Foch has been able to gap Killian Ryan Meenan by just a little bit. You saw Savalainen in the 100 go off a moment ago as well. So no fight behind Killian. It's all in front of him now in the final lap or two of the race. In fact, 2 laps to go this time by. As Huell, I think you might be right. I think Huell might have got something. So let's see here. Yes, indeed. Drive-through penalty for 548, taking out the 19. Position not given back. You were right on the money.
Yeah, that was the incident we saw earlier here, just one corner before where we are right now, and that did look like a very clean takeout that could be rewarded with a drive-through. But yeah, at the time of me seeing the drive-through, wasn't quite sure because we didn't have the information from the stewards. Meanwhile, Ryan Meenan, he was, let's say, half a second behind Fogg, and he's now 1 second behind, so he seems to be struggling a bit keeping up the pace here with Samuel Fogg, but so many people getting a drive-through, even if we just heard leaders on the final lap. Who knows, maybe Fogg will still get a drive-through, or Ryan Meenan will get one. Doesn't seem to be safe anymore on the wet.
Well, you can't let your guard down. There's been too much of that in the final 15 minutes. People may be getting a bit tired. It is a workout, folks, I promise you. Driving around here in the dark, in the wet, fighting your car, as so many of these guys and gals are doing. So if you lose your concentration a little bit, maybe you're not racing somebody for a second, you relax, and then all of a sudden you're not in the zone, and you make little mistakes because you're not thinking ahead of where you are, and you never know. Samir Foch here defending could be an issue. Alex Rogers for what would to me is like the seventh time tonight. Saves it, but very nearly coming down mine shaft. Had a very nasty accident near the end of this race. Saves it, and more to the point, we'll have one more lap to try and get by Pierce for the sixth place position. Excellent save by Alex Rogers there. As well, I couldn't do that, so kudos.
Yeah, indeed. That's not hard to. That's not easy to hold it there when you lose the grip, especially when it's losing the grip on acceleration. But
Get a shot.
yeah, he seems to be way faster than Thomas Pierce, because I didn't expect him to catch up again after the spin, but he's already close behind him. And we're gonna follow this battle here for this lap. We're gonna switch back to Boothby really quick, because he actually is finishing the race right now, starting from P1, finishing on P1 with a gigantic gap of what must be 40 or 50 seconds now. And yeah, he's just in another race here. But yeah, back to this fight. Fogg and Meenan on P2, they're still not close enough to each other to be actually fighting, so we're just gonna keep watching this until the lap is over.
I just want to say for George Boothby, a well-ran race in the 75 Porsche. He set out this fall to learn the Porsche. He's got new teammates, and oh, it's going to contact. Thomas Pierce is going for a spin. Rogers is going to go through. Now, that's not how you drew it up. Who did what to who? Did Pierce close in on Rogers, or did Rogers give Pierce the boot?
It looked like from the camera that we were looking at that...
He's letting him back.
Yeah, that Rogers just was a bit too optimistic there into the corner. We can just have a quick look, because I don't think there will be any move in the next corner. And yeah, he's just braking a bit too late. There was no overlap into the braking, and that unfortunately not working out here.
Well, clearly Alex Rogers wasn't trying to spin him to win the race. He didn't mean it. Alex Rogers,
but he's not giving up yet.
Wait up for Pierce, but again, he's going to let him back through, but he's not going to let this go through the crocodiles and down into Cheetah for the final time. And only Ingwe left. Will there be a dive from Alex Rogers here for sixth place? I don't think so. He's too far through Ingwe, and it's over. Or excuse me, that's not Ingwe. I don't know why I'm calling it that, but anyway, the final corner, and Alex Rogers will have to settle for seventh. Thomas Pierce in sixth place. Spirited battle, but you also have to say that it wasn't necessarily respectful, but it was professional there at the end, letting him back through. 15-second penalty for Rogers coming in at the end, and I wonder if that has something to do with that spin. That would have been a really quick turnaround for the stewards. The race over, the results confirmed. George Boothby, the trifecta, the pole position, the fastest lap in the race, led every lap, of course, and won in the 75 Porsche. Just a perfect round, an unnecessary round to get him back into the championship. Samir Foch, all the way from sixth to second, holding off Killian Ryan Meenan, finishing second. An excellent drive from a championship leader. Killian Ryan Meenan did everything he could and finished on the third step of the podium in the 211 Porsche. Jonas Savalainen will be frustrated with himself and his drive tonight. Was in second the entire night, fell apart in the final 10 with a penalty, and will finish fourth overall. Cormac Ryan Meenan, the top five. And that is it. And of course, the end of the race, I believe Timothy Flamger did win in silver. I have to refer back
Yeah.
to the order. And yes, indeed. No, actually, no, he didn't. Giannis Tassopoulos won in silver in the 778. Timothy Flamger second, and Huell finished third in the 548. And those are your podium finishers for the race tonight. A big thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. And just a reminder, a thank you to all of our partners. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com and using our discount code, link in the description. Fanatec.com. You can get excellent sim racing equipment from Fanatec, top of the line direct drive equipment. And of course, if you use our affiliate link, you can help us out with things like server cost at no extra cost to yourself. And a big thank you to Sim Racing GP. If you're tired of public lobbies, try Sim Racing GP. Sign up is free. Get racing today. AK Informatica for hosting our servers and much alike. Thank you to them. And Race Department, your source for all sim racing news. Wow, what a race tonight, Stewie. Final thoughts.
Yeah, what a race. You said it. And I mean, we talked about most of the stuff during the race already with all the changes. This was going to be a very interesting race, and we weren't disappointed. I think the only thing that could have made this race even more interesting would have been a weather change. But I think the drivers had enough on their hands with yeah, just driving in the rain. We actually saw a lot of good overtakes as well. A lot of small contacts, a lot of people fighting with their own car. But yeah, overall, I think a very good race, and considering the circumstance, also very clean.
Well, it was a dirty night, though, you have to admit. A lot of spins, a lot of self inflicted spins, which is unfortunate, but better than contact, surely. It was a somewhat cold, rainy night here in South Africa, but everyone learning a little something about the newest update to ACC, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Certainly, George Boothby celebrating as well. Finished second yesterday, won tonight, an excellent result for them. And for everybody else, I think it's a bit of going back to the drawing board, fixing things that are wrong, and coming back stronger next week. That's what I'm excited about. Night Owl for next week, round four. What are they going to be like with a full week of practice under their belt? Surely it'll look a lot different. And can Boothby continue his championship hunt? All of these questions and more will be answered in 1 week's time. We thank you all for being with
It's
us
two
here
weeks.
on RCI TV for Night Owl. Excuse me, in 2 weeks. That's right. We'll be back with you. And of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell for all of your GT3 racing action. We would love to have you in the future. On Monday, of course, Ryan Gill and Nate bring you the Porsche Cup. On Thursday, myself and Tim Peck on the call for GT4s. And on Friday, Ryan Mawson and myself, normal service with Stewie, resumed on Friday. And in a couple of weeks, we'll see you back here for some more Night Owl action. Subscribe, like, do all the things, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good night.